It's happening. Adults across the country can buy cannabis. People have a lot of questions, so I invited some friends over to talk about it. Joining me today is Abi Roach from Hotbox Lounge.
You know, they're just regular people that enjoy cannabis and sell cannabis and grow cannabis.
Derek Ogden, ex-RCMP drug enforcement.
I'm not even sure that they have the ability to do that.
And Hugo Alves from Cannabis Wheaton.
No, it's bullshit. It should be expunged from the record.
I'm Chuck Rifici, and we're talking the biz. Many Canadians have a criminal record for cannabis possession. If it's legal, should that be the case?
No, it's bullshit. It should be expunged from the record. It should be full pardon.
During the legalization or just once it's already legal?
Once legalization hits. So as a society, you make a set of rules, laws. It says, if you engage in this behavior, you suffer a consequence. And then as a result of part of that consequence is you have a record that impacts your life. If now we've said as a society, those rules don't apply anymore. So like you're not a bad person if you consume cannabis and get caught doing it. Like, why should that person continue to be imprisoned or continue to suffer the negative consequences from an activity which we as a society have now deemed as okay? It makes no sense. You should be able, if you have the time and bandwidth and resources to do it, to apply for expungement from your record and get that record expunged.
Why not just expunge them automatically? The minute that we knew legalization was part of the platform, would you not expunge then, or do you not just make a blanket exemption? I mean, what are the issues there?
I'm not even sure that they have the ability to do that. So you don't get, your criminal record doesn't come out and say that you're convicted for possession of cannabis. It says you're convicted for possession of a narcotic. So unless somebody can pour through every record and see what the details were of that conviction, they can't just wave a magic wand and say, okay, everybody that's ever been convicted of a possession of a narcotic now no longer has that, because that isn't, I don't think, what the government intention would be.
So Hugo, to your point, I mean, does it really, does it make sense if somebody, as you said, broke the law when something was illegal and now have that consequence, whatever that might be, in this case, cannabis possession, does it make sense to remove that? I mean, they crossed the line at that time, right? And to play the devil's advocate, I mean, is it really, is that fair to people who didn't cross that line back then?
Yeah, I think part of the application process for expungement is that someone looks at the totality of like, okay, well, what did you actually do to break the law? And that could be more than just possession, but I think the act of possession, we're now saying it's legal. And we're saying that, we were wrong. Like, this is not harmful to society that you possessed cannabis. Why should I continue to have my freedom and ability to pursue the job I want, to have an employer look at me a certain way? Like, why should I continue to suffer those consequences?
There's a lot of issues. I mean, traveling to the US and other countries can be impaired as well. And so, I mean, Derek, with law enforcement, sometimes, I think of a view of you get sometimes a lesser charge. Do you think there'd be a lot of cases where somebody has a possession charge, but really it's because there's greater criminal activity around there? Do you think that is perhaps a reason that we're not hearing policymakers talk about removing these cannabis charges to date?
It's certainly a consideration that they'd be aware of, because it's not uncommon at all for somebody to be charged with multiple offenses, and one of those offenses might be possession for the purpose of trafficking, and they may, as a package, when they go in and do their guilty plea, to move the possession for the purpose of trafficking down to a simple possession case. So that happens, I would say, quite frequently. So I'm sure but that goes to your point, that all the circumstances get reviewed, although that would be a lot of work.
Yeah, a bit of an administrative nightmare.
Yeah, it would be for sure. Yeah.
I think a point that we're also not touching on is the families and the people of those affected by prohibition that also deserve maybe some kind of apology, how many children were taken away by Children's Aid because the parents were cannabis consumers. I know I myself many years ago had an experience where CES was sent to my house because we were cannabis smokers, right? So, and my stepchildren were almost taken away. I had to argue myself out of that. So I think there's a lot of other circumstances that we need to look at that prohibition caused that people aren't necessarily discussing.
Yeah, and we're not going to get it perfect.
No.
I think just to touch back on the trafficking point, like, let's not forget, trafficking is still illegal. You are not allowed to sell cannabis unless you are licensed to sell cannabis under the new proposed regulations. So there is a difference between someone who had a trafficking charge. Can they apply for expungement? Well, no, because that's still an illegal activity. But if it's a possession charge, then they should be allowed to do it. The ability to say, I have this charge and I think that it no longer applies and I should be able to get it expunged, it's still and that's why I don't think just having an automatic expungement works, because you're putting the burden on the regulators and the administrators to figure it out, when really this is something that impacts your personal liberty and well-being. So if it's important enough to you to apply to get it expunged, and if you feel the circumstances of your charge were such that it should be expunged, then put in the application and make the argument and fight for it. But you should have the right to do it.
To clarify, expunged, I mean, it's as if it never happened?
Correct.
Yeah, it just takes it out.
Yeah, it's just gone.
I've been in this industry for 18 years, and I'm on my 5th, I think, government cycle now. And, I've been through some crazy governments, and I've seen this come and go, and I'm blessed that this is actually happening. My only concern is two concerns, is that they're, one, not trying to include the people who are not only consumers, but people within the industry, and creating spaces for them to come out of the black market and enter the legal framework, right? There has to be a chance, and that's the only way that you're gonna make this work. The secondary thing is there's so much prohibitionist stigma behind the laws that are coming up. I think they need a fresh set of eyes to think about this and really write policy that will be functional for not only the consumers in the industry, but everybody who is a non-consumer as well. Look around the world. We are the first federal country to legalize, but there's other countries where cannabis is tolerated, and there's cannabis businesses that exist, and see what works and what hasn't worked, and work around policy that is functional rather than prohibitionist.
Derek, for Canadians that would be concerned that people with criminal charges, even though it's just possession, a concern that we're somehow letting organized crime go free, or hardened criminals kind of getting a free pass. I mean, what do you say to that, or to all of you, what is the risk there, and the perception risk?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I mean, there's a lot of people involved at the organized crime level that don't have any criminal record, right? Mm-hmm. That's one thing that you have to bear in mind. And there's obviously a large portion of the industry that doesn't touch organized crime, and I get that part too. There's a group of people in the middle that, especially on the production side, that they don't really associate themselves with the organized crime, but they're the ones that they'll produce and they'll sell larger amounts every month to the same person, and that person goes out and they gather from 30 other people that same amount, and at that point those people are engaged with people at higher levels, and that definitely is an organized crime element.
But organized crime is, like, by definition, engaged in crime. Just because someone was in organized crime because they organized themselves to participate in this gray market, and now they want to participate in the regulated environment, like, that's no longer organized crime. Like, they're just people.
Organized crime is interested in high profit with no competition. So, now you're looking at there's going to be probably, by the time 5 years rolls, there'll be 500, 600 licensed producers across Canada, microprocessors. The price of cannabis will drop. There's no point of them being involved anymore, right?
But I think the task force was really wise when they kind of looked at the whole issue, and they realized that, hey, we have to find a way to bring the craft growers into the industry. Yeah. That's the key. Mm-hmm. If you bring the craft growers in, and give them a path to a legal livelihood, right? That will make a huge difference.
And in my past with this industry, in general, I would say 95% of my dealings were just with normal people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't consider most, 95% of these people as criminals, right? It's like they're just like, Joe, Mo, and Mama. They're just regular people that enjoy cannabis and sell cannabis and grow cannabis, right?
Well, that was a really important topic. I'm glad we were able to hash that out. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Chuck.